on to the next. Okay, our friend of the channel, VoidyVids here. What the hell is going on? He says.
You may have heard that Star Citizen 3.24 finally went live and people are pissed. Pyro's delayed, cargo is broken and nothing is working. But not to worry, handsome viewer, your favorite degenerate sound effect generator is here to talk about what the hell is going on. The latest live patch bears the label Cargo Empires, and as of recording this video, the state of things is less empire and more abandoned village of special needs peasantry, which kind of sucks because I was excited to get my space Genghis Khan on to raid, pillage and plunder my way through Stanton one SEU at a time. But no one's going to be fleecing disenfranchised traders who cannot fit the square through the circle hole because none of the blocks work. I streamed a bit of our ludicrous space game recently and was asked non-stop by my massive and impressive community about my thoughts on the patch so far. Okay, fine, I got like one question from one guy, so instead of giving him what he wanted, I'm giving all of you what you never asked for. My thoughts on 3.24, the 18th pyro delay, and my sentiment on the state of the project as a whole. Man, what great value. 3.24 has been released in a really bad state, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's already multiple hotfixes in the works or already deployed by the time this video goes live, as the devs were literally working on a Sunday for God's sake, which is unholy but gives me hope for the patch's near future. As for what I think about 3.24, I believe it's the most anti-pay-to-win Star Citizen patch of all time, because now with the way cargo works, you don't sell commodities directly from your ship, a ship that you would have historically needed to own yourself either in-game or with real-world money. You sell the commodities by moving all your SEUs onto cargo elevators sprinkled throughout Stanton, which, if they work, is pretty neat. Because if you look at someone like Summit1G, who single-handedly catapulted Star Citizen's Twitch viewership into the stratosphere for a month, I feel like his audience tends to represent your average everyday gamer who might come into Star Citizen one day and tackle the same sort of gameplay he did. That is, stealing ships, stealing cargo, and doing epic pirate things. With 3.24, this type of player does not need to own a $400+ starship or grind for its equivalent in-game to sell cargo from. The gameplay opportunities for piracy are immediately more accessible. This is a huge win because it creates exciting gameplay in our ludicrous PvPvE space game. We just need the cargo elevators to consistently work. So with the physical act of moving cargo to sell it now a thing, it's become more of a time investment to make larger potential profit margins while trading instead of just clicking a button and flying from A to B to click another button. Star Citizen has always strived to be a very physicalized game, and seeing these mechanics realized is a good thing in my book because it allows for more goal-driven gameplay scenarios to exist. Not only that, but it even more so encourages group play. 2 or 3 people moving boxes speeds things up tremendously, and using teamwork to optimize a gameplay loop in a multiplayer game shouldn't be that hard of a pill to swallow. I enjoy the fact that by design, playing Star Citizen solo doesn't make anything truly impossible, it just becomes less efficient, and the trend is that there's always a bit of room for creativity.
That is such great commentary right there. He is so spot on with that. That is so well put. Aside
from these cargo changes, the big ticket item is the new cargo contract missions, which I'll maybe totally try sometime once they get them working. Then with regards to the 4.0 delay again, there's a lot of talk about how all the stuff that was mentioned at last year's CitizenCon stands a chance of making it into a playable version of the game before the end of the year. Now, allow me to use an analogy. Star Citizen developers, CIG, are like a food truck that's trying to assemble and sell the most amazing sandwiches ever to be conceived by mortal gamer mouths. There are 4 types of people waiting around the food truck. Those that get served ship sandwiches and eat them with a big old smile on their face as the brown juices run down and around their mouths, eager for more. And those that get served ship sandwiches and eat them but are upset because for God's sake they just ate a ship sandwich. That's pretty gross, what the f*** are you doing? Then there are those that might have a small taste of the ship sandwich due to morbid curiosity and realize that the restaurant has potential. They made a slightly edible ship sandwich after all and will come back later once the menu gets upgraded or something. And lastly, there are people at other food trucks looking confusingly at a bunch of people eating ship sandwiches. At the end of the day, we're all eating ship sandwiches for some reason. You're allowed to enjoy the ship sandwich. You're allowed to not enjoy the ship sandwich. You're allowed to complain about a bad ship sandwich, and you're allowed to praise a good ship sandwich. No one is
yes, sir! You're not gonna eat me! Yes!
So succinctly put, so professionally done. Absolutely. Absolutely.
forcing you to eat the ship sandwich.
Absolutely.
Personally, I don't expect much out of my ship sandwich until Squadron 42 is completed and released. Once that's the case, I'll start to expect much greater things from your average Star Citizen patch, gameplay, and features. The development and progress of Star Citizen suffers because we're waiting for a whole ass other game to come out first. There are literally millions of reasons that could be way worse than that. Now, if you were to yank my chain and get me to be brutally honest about how I feel about the state of the Star Citizen project as a whole, what I would say is that I've been slow to realize that I used to tell friends about how Star Citizen is so special and unique because it doesn't need to obey publisher pressures, deadlines, and invested targets, and is immune from these things that have been systematically corrupting the releases of a lot of games for the last 15 or so years. However, it really feels, and this has obviously been for a while now, that the business and marketing end of the Star Citizen project has assumed that role of publisher, which unfortunately leads to patches getting released before they're ready, and we end up with a live build of the game like we have now.
This is so good. And I'm going to break into this commentary and just tell people that what is going to happen into this model. This is such a new model, by the way. A fan-funded model. Really, there weren't a lot of successful ones prior to Star Citizen. This one, absolutely based upon revenue, is successful. In terms of finished product, no. In terms of progress and what I've seen from it, yes. But in terms of it being successful in a business sense, financially, it's extremely successful. Bringing in nearly 800 million, all fan funded. They've got it locked down. So what he's saying is absolutely correct. Where the pressure comes in for this type of new funding, and it's relatively new because a lot of people fell flat on their face and weren't able to deliver on their promises. A lot. There's so many. Illyria, so many other titles you can list that did just not come through at all. Just terrible, 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 terrible lies. And there were a lot of rug pulls, but there's never really been one that's been this successful in terms of the amount of revenue and the longevity and the amount of fans that are flocking to it. And the amount of revenue they continue to generate. But what's going to eventually happen, this is what's going to happen. People will get upset enough that the revenues will plateau or go down. Bingo. That's when the pressure is applied. So on these new models, and this is what I've been saying for weeks, for a month now, if you're not happy with the progress of Star Citizen, stop pledging. You would think that this is common sense. However, there are people now that are upset or have hit this point of upsetness, which is all part of a cycle. It's always the worst around this time anyway, right before CitizenCon. And they get upset and they stop voting and they start voting with their pocketbook. They stop spending. So I do predict within the next year or so, revenues plateauing and then maybe contracting a bit. And that's okay. Every business has that. Every business has expansion and contraction phases. So, we will act as the publisher and we will essentially apply the pressure when people stop spending as much. Then the pressure will be applied and then they'll change the way they go about things. That's how it's done in the real world. So, again, I will say this. I'm not I'm not in a position where I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to stop pledging, because I'm just looking at this as a fan. I want to support it. There's still work being done on it. If I see something I like, I'll get it. I'm very patient. I can see the big picture in all of this. I've been around this long. I just have seen this over and over again. And many of you have as well. These cycles, right? We're up on the edge. It's dynamic server mesh time. I knew we were going to hit it. I've been talking about this for years, that eventually we're going to hit a point where it's dynamic server meshing or bust. And we're right there. But dynamic server meshing is the way it needs to evolve, the way it needs to be put into this game to provide the stability is going to take a long time. And there's no way around that. So I'm going to keep pledging for ships that I like, because I know that money is going to partially go towards dynamic server meshing and graphics, like on tonight's Inside Star Citizen, of space cows farting out player characters like, Jim Carrey's movie. That's really important. That's really the most important thing, that my money goes towards that, those parodies, Inside Star Citizen parodies.
The project obviously needs infinite money and infinite time to get done. Speaking of time, I'm one of those weird patient gamers. I don't feel the need to play titles that I'm hyped for on day one. I held off on Helldivers until I was sure it would be worth playing, and I staved off Elden Ring for months until I was happy that I had the time to try it for myself. And now I'm excited to play Black Myth Wukong, but I'll happily wait for that to go on Steam sale. I even bought the first Total War Warhammer title, a game series that I absolutely love, on Humble Bundle for $1 after it had been out for well over a year. There are a ton of examples of games out there that have gotten better with age and dedication from their respective developers, and I don't think Star Citizen will be any different in that regard. In my mind, No Man's Sky created this weird new precedent where you can absolutely shit the bed with a game's release that gets overhyped beyond imagination, and once the reality of the game's crappiness sets in, it hits rock bottom and disappoints an entire disillusioned and angry player base. But then, with enough time and passion, No Man's Sky became the standard for which all badly released game redemption arcs are based on. Cyberpunk 2077 followed a similar trend and is now considered an incredible game that a lot of my friends recommend I play regularly. Now this could be seen as a new and overly negative trend that live service games try to get away with by intentionally releasing in a subpar state and then milking their player bases while improving slowly over time. However, non-indie or quadruple A games, whatever the that actually means these days, have become so insanely expensive and difficult to develop, it's hard to know for sure if this is avoidable in the first place. All I know is that today, right now, does anyone care about the awful state that No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 released in? That's in the past. No one really gives a shit. And I believe that Star Citizen will probably go the same way. No one...
That's why Voidy's a friend of the channel, man. It's just like a rational long-term viewpoint. You get these guys, they're in it for the short term. They're in it for like the microbursts of fear, the microbursts of hype, they're going in, they're looking with like their field of vision and scope and imagination is so limited. And they're going after clickbait after clickbait after monetizable shit. And they're going after the micro. I love people like Voidy and others that have like this rational kind of long-term view. He's right about No Man's Sky. Totally. He's so dead on. His commentary is so deadly right. He's so right about Cyberpunk. And you've got people here that are continuing the work. That's what I guess my disconnect is like you have real people continuing to do the work here, right? And again, if people aren't happy with it, it'll reflect in the revenues. The numbers in the revenues will drop. That's when the attention hits. When those numbers drop, it hits the gut, and the guys in charge of the project go, whoa, something's going on here. We have to change something. And so perhaps things will get organized differently. Perhaps the teams have better communication as a result of it. Perhaps they'll cut back some of the fat that they don't need and put it into areas of development that they do. Again, that's all part of the life cycles of a business. And in game development, that's pretty normal. And you'll have these big expansion phases and then contraction phases. It's just part of it. It's just so like I love his view. I love the long-term view. I say this a lot, but I don't really think that there's anybody else out there trying to do what Cloud Imperium's trying to do. I truly think they're trying to pioneer the space. They're pushing the boundaries on server tech and network engineering, period. If you think if there's any titles out there that where the developer is trying to do the same, please let me know. We've covered 3 now. And the last one we watched, Dune Awakening, awesome. Still not the scale, but freaking awesome. And I'll play it. I'll play that game. And I'll let you know what I think of it. It looks amazing. The crafting looks amazing. The graphics, but the actual game itself looks great. So Starship Simulator looked awesome. I'll probably try that as well. For the Stars, everybody was screaming that Snail Games was Skamazes. So I think I might stay away from that because the audience pretty much said no, stay away from Further Stars. But like, if you guys know of any other titles, please just tell me the title so we can look at them. That's what we do here on the variety show and the morning show. We watch other titles, we watch other games, see if there's anything interesting out there for our audience. Father's Game says, my issue now that all the devs are back on PU. I don't understand why we don't see a lot more ramping up in development on the PU. We really didn't. He says, in my opinion, this is the worst year for content so far. All those extra bodies, yet no content in live makes me wonder. See? And Fathers isn't alone, in that there's, and again, I recommend to people, if you are upset about it, then please vote with the pocketbooks, And I think you'll see the changes you want. Once they see those revenues numbers take a fall, they'll be like, oh,
Will care how insanely bad or ridiculous the years and years of development.
There's going to be a huge Squadron 42 showing at CitizenCon. You will see a pivot on Squadron 42. They need to make the money on that. That's been going on too long. They will pivot huge on Squadron 42 at CitizenCon. I hope we see an economy panel, and I hope we also see what this. I think they're going to show us more on land claims, and they're going to hype the land claims. I think they're going to hype Squadron, and I think they're going to hype land claims is what they're going to do. But what I really need is some type of economic gameplay. A lot of us traders, a lot of us have been waiting a long time for more than just, A to B fetch quest missions. Like a true economy and with UI that we can understand, that's intuitive, where we can see the assets easily, trade them. We need to get deeper with the economy here. We really, really do. For people that are like hardcore industrialists, definitely need more of that. Definitely.
And alpha stages of the game were, if we eventually end up with a fun game that works and taps in.
But my point is this. Show me a title. Show me a developer. Truly, show me one that's trying to pioneer this way into a world where we can have like huge amounts of instances all sharing the same event together in the upper 100s to thousands. Like, show me a world where people aren't going to be amazed by that tech when it eventually hits, because it will. People are naive to think that that's not going to hit. If Cloud Imperium doesn't do it, somebody's going to do it. That tech will hit. Dynamic server meshing, as proposed by Cloud Imperium, as how they're working on it, how they're trying to evolve the tech, will exist by somebody someday. It'd be naive to think that it wouldn't happen. But I'm just glad that Cloud Imperium's pursuing it.
To its potential. We'll all be too busy enjoying the game. Thank you, channel patrons and channel members, for all your support. Thinking of pledging to this ludicrous space game?
That's cool. Listen, I love Voidy, friend of the channel. I think personally, long-term vision, with an imagination and a great sense of humor. That's Voidy. I love him. Good guy. Go there, go to that video, tell him hello from DG360. Give him likes, give him loves, give him shares, subscribe. Cool dude. Let's see